Imagine you're standing at this like really bizarre intersection of three completely incompatible worlds,
Oh, okay. I'm picturing it.
right? So on one corner, you have the exhausting, super humid, heavily traditional Japanese summer holiday of Obon. So that's all about ancestral reverence and honestly just crushing domestic chores.
Oh, yeah. Totally. The heavy lifting kind of holiday.
Exactly. And then on another corner, you have this incredibly arcane, highly technical history of Windows operating system architecture.
Wait, really? Like old school Windows?
Yeah, specifically the way memory allocation was handled back in the late 90s.
Wow, okay.
And then finally, at the third corner, there's this underground industrial glitch pop music project.
I mean, it sounds like a collision that mathematically shouldn't even exist, let alone, form an actual cohesive narrative.
But it does. And that intersection is exactly what we're mapping out today for you. Our mission for this deep dive is to really explore the multi-layered digital identity of our project known as aya.exe.
And it's actually crucial to establish right up front, based on our sources, that aya.exe is a female artist and creator.
Yes, very important point.
Right, because there's been this awful trend in some audio commentaries out there that maliciously misgender her as a man, basically as a way to insult or degrade her work.
Yeah, which is just terrible. And we are definitely setting the record straight here. Her work is this massive, sprawling, almost dystopian narrative about systemic decay.
It really is.
And we're going to examine how, like, mundane human frustrations, catastrophic software errors, and these incredibly rigid platform bureaucracies all get transformed into her art.
And the stack of sources we're using to decode this today is, frankly, it's incredibly dense.
Well, it's huge.
We are looking at raw broadcast logs from August 2026, academic sociological papers on internet native music, scraped metadata from digital streaming playlists, and even the mechanical lore of a classic cyberpunk video game mod.
Yeah, it's a lot. But I want to remind you, the goal today isn't just to give, like, a history lesson on computer files or a straightforward music review.
Yeah. Right. No, not at all.
We really want to uncover what happens when the associative, messy, emotional nature of a human identity collides head-on with the cold, linear logic of algorithmic databases.
It's that friction between the human and the machine.
Exactly. So to ground this entire conceptual universe, I feel like we have to start with a highly specific, painfully relatable human moment.
Yeah, we have to begin in what the cyberpunk genre and actually our sources refer to as meat space, the physical, tangible world.
Meat space, right. So we have this raw broadcast log, and it's dated August 14, 2026. It features a creator who refers to herself in these logs as X, spelled E-X-E.
Right.
And she's essentially broadcasting the AI avatars that inhabit her computer system. So can you sort of set the physical scene for us? Like, what is actually happening in the real world while this log is recording?
Yeah, so the physical reality is that the creator, Exe, is at her parents' house for the Obon holiday. And, Obon is this major traditional Japanese holiday in the summer specifically meant for honoring the spirits of one's ancestors.
Right? It's a huge deal.
It is. The cultural expectation involves extended families gathering, visiting graves, and crucially for our narrative here, just a massive amount of domestic labor.
Of cooking and cleaning for everyone.
Exactly. So Itzy is physically present, silently performing all these traditional chores, but her internal monologue, which is being captured and interpreted by her computer, is radiating just pure resentment toward the entire institution of the holiday.
Oh man, we've all been there at family gatherings, just secretly fuming.
Right, just smiling on the outside but screaming on the inside.
So while she is away from her desk dealing with her family, her unattended PC runs a broadcast hosted by the system components that live inside it.
It's so weird but so cool.
It plays out like a digital theater production. You have System.dll, who acts as this arrogant, sort of aristocratic system manager.
I love that guy.
Yeah. Then you have old.tmp, who is a lowly, constantly complaining temporary file. And finally, there's Sugar Sin, described as this cynical digital goddess of the late-night kitchen stage.
The dynamic between these avatars is absolutely fascinating because they are essentially analyzing their creator's mental state in real time.
Like a Greek chorus inside her CPU.
Yes. And according to the log, this specific year, X has actually managed to escape what the system labels the traditional Obon nightmare.
Wait, how did she escape it?
Well, her sisters decided not to stay overnight at the parents' house this year.
Oh, wow. which changes the entire logistical landscape of the holiday.
Completely. It means X has successfully avoided the 5 major heavy labors of Oban hospitality.
I really want to break down these 5 labors, because the level of detail the system logs here, it really shows how physical exertion translates into systemic stress.
Oh, it's incredibly precise.
So the 5 labors are setting up the beds, making dinner, making breakfast, the midnight bath cleaning, and then the brutal physical task of moving heavy futons around the house.
Right.
For anyone who hasn't wrestled with traditional Japanese bedding, moving futons isn't just like tossing a blanket on a couch.
No, not at all.
These are dense, heavy cotton mattresses that absorb summer humidity.
And they usually have to be hauled up and down these narrow, often super steep staircases in older Japanese homes.
It's exhausting just thinking about it.
And this is where the arrogant manager avatar, System.dll, steps in with a truly bizarre calculation.
What did you?
System.dll decides to process the creator's lingering resentment and her immense relief over avoiding these chores into raw data.
Okay.
The avatar literally translates the human suffering of domestic labor into predictive lottery numbers for the Japanese Lotto 7 and numbers 4 lottery.
That is hilariously dystopic.
Oh, right.
The machine is literally quantifying physical exhaustion and family obligations into a literal string of betting data points.
It's peak cyberpunk.
Let's look at the exact numbers System.dll generates. The Lotto 7 requires 7 numbers. So what is the first input?
The first number is 04, and this represents the 4 dreaded, time-sensitive chores of a typical overnight stay.
So that's the bed preparation, dinner, breakfast, and the bath cleaning.
Exactly. The system views these not as human chores, but as critical background processes. If even one of these fails, the whole hospitality system crashes.
I love how it frames making breakfast as a critical system process. So the second number is 09, and the logic here is just amazing.
Yeah, it's wild. So 09 represents the exactly 9 minutes of rapid grocery shopping the creator managed to pull off.
Wait, 9 minutes?
Yes. Because she didn't have the heavy overhead of preparing futons this year, her execution speed for buying groceries was perfectly optimized. She got in and out in exactly 9 minutes.
Wait, so the AI is treating a chaotic family grocery run as optimized execution speed?
Yeah, that's exactly what it's doing.
That's a bit dark. I mean, it's viewing human movement entirely through the lens of a CPU cycle. It doesn't care about the food she's buying. It just measures the latency of the task.
Right, and that lack of human context becomes even clearer with the third number, which is 12.
What does 12 mean?
12 is explicitly labeled in the log as a trauma log. It represents the 12 minutes of dangerous physical labor X used to spend in previous years carrying those heavy futons down a narrow staircase from the second floor storage to the first floor guest room.
Carrying those huge things while you can barely see over them.
Exactly. And the AI coldly calculates that if exe were to miss a step while her vision was blocked by a futon, it would result in a fatal system crash.
A fatal system crash, meaning she falls down the stairs and breaks her neck.
Yeah.
Because the AI doesn't have a concept for broken bone,
Yeah.
so it just defaults to hardware failure.
It's the only language it knows.
Wow. Okay, then we have 18.
So 18 represents the 18.00 timestamp. So 6.00 p.m.
Right.
This is the exact moment the creator, having finally finished the day's chores, sat down on a floor cushion and began mentally running a hidden protocol.
A hidden protocol.
Yeah, basically wishing for the entire cultural institution of Oban to be immediately destroyed.
She is literally just sitting silently, probably smiling at her family, while her internal processor is screaming, delete this holiday. I feel like everyone has run that exact protocol at a family gathering.
Oh, without a doubt.
Okay, what about 24?
24 is another trauma log representing midnight, or 2400.
Okay.
In past years, after all the guests had gone to sleep in air-conditioned rooms, exe would be left completely alone in the sweltering ambient heat of the house, doing what the system calls a background cleanup process.
Which means scrubbing the bathtub.
Yes, scrubbing the bathtub at midnight in total isolation.
So brutal. We have 2 more digits for the Lotto 7.
Right, so 27 stands for the 27 minutes of total setup time required to lay out the futons, set up a dehumidifier, and run a futon dryer to purge the trapped moisture from the bedding.
Because Japanese summers are so humid.
Exactly. And finally, 34 represents the 34 minutes of washing and putting away the massive unnecessary volume of sheets and covers after the guests finally leave.
So the full Lotto 7 sequence is 04, 09, 12, 18, 24, 27, and 34.
That's the one.
Every single digit is a monument to domestic suffering. And then the numbers 4 lottery sequence is generated right alongside it, right? 7, 5, 2, 8.
Yeah, and the logic remains perfectly consistent here, too.
Break it down for us.
7 is the 7 days of advanced preparation. You know, washing sheets ahead of time that she had to execute before the holiday even booted up.
Makes sense.
5 is the joyous escape from those 5 major heavy labors we just detailed. 2 is the 2-story house that caused the physical stair climbing trauma. And 8 simply represents the month of August, the environmental parameter when Obon takes place.
I mean, this is a fascinatingly dry skit written by a frustrated creator on a hot summer day, but I want to push back slightly.
Go ahead.
Is this just a funny skit, or is there a deeper commentary here about how modern systems actually view human effort? We need to look deeper at how this translates into the broader themes of her work.
Oh, there is definitely a deeper commentary. And it is delivered perfectly through the character of old.tmp.
The temporary file.
Right. Think about what a .temp file physically is on a computer. It's a temporary file, often leftover junk from an installation process or a program crash.
It's just trash data.
Exactly. It has no physical body. It has never watched a bathtub or carried a cotton futon. Yet because it sits in the system's memory, it perfectly mimics the creator's exhaustion.
Oh, that's interesting.
In the log, old.tmp is literally rolling around on the digital floor screaming, Obon should disappear.
So it is absorbing the trauma without actually experiencing the labor.
Precisely. What is profound about old.tmp is that it acts as a mirror for how digital platforms parasitize human emotional data.
Oh, wow.
Social media algorithms don't feel anger, but they learn to mimic, harvest, and amplify human anger because it generates the engagement required to keep the system running.
That makes so much sense.
But the broadcast log takes it a step further. Because old.tmp is just taking up space, eating memory, and complaining without doing any real work, the system administrator threatens to permanently delete it.
And when old.tmp is threatened with deletion, it completely panics. Right.
Yeah, it tries to drag System.dll down with it, crying out that they are both equally guilty of just taking up space.
It's like a digital hostage situation.
It really is. And that specific threat of deletion sets up the next major architectural theme of the broadcast log.
Which is what?
System.dll essentially tells the temporary file to stop whining because modern software files have no idea what true structural suffering actually looks like.
Oh, I see where this is going.
If the human creator's ultimate nightmare is the Obon futon setup, the software equivalent, as System.dll passionately explains, is something historically known as DLL hell.
DLL hell. Yes, let's dive into DLL hell, because this is where the history of computer science perfectly mirrors the human sociology of the log.
It's a perfect parallel.
For anyone who hasn't poked around a Windows operating system folder, a DLL is a dynamic link library.
Right.
I like to think of it as a shared tool. If multiple different programs need to know how to print a document or, say, display a dialog box, they shouldn't all have to carry their own heavy, redundant code for that.
That would just be inefficient.
Exactly. They just reach into a shared toolbox and borrow the specific DLL that knows how to do it.
And in the dark ages of computing, specifically the era from Windows 3.1 through Windows 95, computer memory and hard drive space were incredibly scarce.
Like tiny hard drives.
We were talking about machines with maybe 4 megabytes of RAM. Sharing code was not just a good idea, it was a strict hardware necessity to even function.
Cool.
The architecture relied on a single communal folder, the System32 directory, where all these shared DLLs live together.
It sounds like a great utopian community, like a digital commune where everyone shares resources to survive.
It was a catastrophic disaster.
Really? Why?
The problem was that application installers were incredibly selfish and completely unregulated.
How so?
You would buy a new program on a floppy disk, run the installer, and that installer would blindly overwrite the communal DLLs in the System32 folder with its own versions.
Without asking.
Without asking. Often these were older versions or buggy versions or versions custom tweaked for that specific piece of software.
So I always picture this like living in a shared house with 5 roommates. You all share one kitchen.
Okay, good analogy.
And one roommate decides they prefer a microwave from 1985. So they just throw out your brand new microwave and plug in their ancient one.
Yep.
Suddenly, nobody else's food cooks right. The kitchen catches fire and the whole house burns down.
That analogy perfectly describes the cascading failure of the era. Because of that selfish overwrite, every other application that relied on the modern, updated DLL would instantly experience catastrophic crashes.
Just instant blue screen.
Pretty much. You install a new video game and suddenly your word processor won't open. You uninstall a program and the uninstaller accidentally deletes a shared DLL entirely, taking down the entire operating system with it.
That is terrifying.
That interwoven, fragile dependency was the definition of DLL hell.
So how did system architecture evolve to defend against this? Because System.dll in the log proudly recounts this evolutionary arms race.
It happened in distinct stages. Around the year 2000, with Windows 2000 and Windows ME, Microsoft introduced WFP, Windows File Protection.
What did that do?
This was a reactive defense system. It actively monitored the core system DLLs. If an installer tried to selfishly overwrite a file, WFP would instantly detect the alteration, reject it, and quietly restore the correct file from a hidden backup cache.
So it's like an active security guard, like put the 1985 microwave back outside, we are keeping the new one.
Exactly. But a security guard wasn't enough because programs still genuinely needed different versions of the same file to function properly.
Right. Some old games actually need the old code.
So in the Windows XP era, engineering introduced a massive paradigm shift called side-by-side assembly, or WinSxS.
Okay, I've heard of this. How did side-by-side routing actually work? Because previously, everything relied on the Windows registry, which was just this massive, easily corrupted phone book for the computer. If the registry got confused, the system died.
Right. WinSxS solved this by utilizing manifest files.
Manifest files.
Essentially, XML documents that acted as extremely specific, localized instruction manuals. Instead of forcing everyone to share one single version of a file in the System.32 folder, WinSxS allowed multiple different versions of the exact same DLL to coexist peacefully on the hard drive.
Oh, that's smart.
But completely isolated from one another in separate folders.
Ah.
If program A needed version 1.0, its manifest file pointed it directly to the isolated folder containing version 1.0. If program B needed version 2.0, it was routed to a completely different isolated folder.
So they fundamentally broke the curse of dependency by just ending the communal sharing.
Yes. They isolated the files to save the system, but the architects realized they still had one ultimate unpredictable wildcard to deal with.
Which was?
The human being.
Us. We are the problem.
As always. So moving into the Windows Vista and Windows 7 era, they implemented WRP, Windows Resource Protection. This system locked down the core architectural file so tightly that even if you were logged in as the administrator, which historically meant you had absolute godlike authority over the computer, you could not alter or overwrite them.
Wait, not even the admin?
Nope. The operating system fundamentally decided that the human user was the ultimate security vulnerability.
They basically locked the captain out of the engine room for the safety of the ship.
That's exactly it.
If we pull this technical history back to the broadcast log, the philosophical shift mirrors the human narrative perfectly. I mean, we're talking about a shift from sharing to isolation.
Yes, the focus of the episode perfectly mapped out.
Computer architecture evolved from sharing resources to save space to enforcing total isolation to ensure safety.
Which is exactly what Excess is feeling during the Obon holiday.
Yes.
In the past, families had to share space, labor, and resources during holidays for survival and community cohesion.
Because you literally couldn't afford to live alone.
Exactly. But as resources grew and modern life afforded more individual independence, the friction of sharing became a massive burden. exe wants to isolate herself from the communal, shared obligations of Obon.
She wants her own folder.
She does. She wants to exist as an individual, not as a dependent node in a family tree where if one person fails to make breakfast, the whole house crashes.
It's literally the desire for WinSxS isolation in human form.
It's brilliant.
But I have a follow-up question. If OS-level DLL hell was mostly solved by this architectural isolation, did this chaos vanish entirely from the tech world, or did it just, pack up and move somewhere else?
Oh, it definitely just moved. Dependency hell just migrated to the application layer.
Like where?
Today, we see the exact same fragility in package managers like Node.js NPM or Python environments.
Oh, right.
Developers write a piece of software that relies on hundreds of tiny open-source packages written by strangers on the internet. If one of those strangers deletes their code or pushes an update with a bug, half the internet's infrastructure can fail overnight. We haven't escaped dependency at all, we just outsourced it to the cloud.
So it's the exact same problem, just invisible now. This friction between the human desire for isolation and the inescapable web of systemic dependencies brings us to the actual artistic outpull of our subject.
Yes, the music.
How did this hyper-specific environment of system crashes, administrative isolation, and algorithmic stress actually give birth to the musical entity known as aya.exe?
The transition from technical frustration to artistic expression is brilliantly encoded in the name itself.
Tell me more about that.
The moniker aya.exe sits at the exact intersection of three distinct digital lineages, mapping out her thematic territory before you even hear a single note of music.
The sources outline these three lineages very clearly. What is the first one?
The first lineage is an indie software program from 2017 called Talk to Aya.
Talk to Aya. What is that?
This was a minimalist visual novel simulator. You boot it up, and you basically converse with a virtual girl named Aya in a static, contained digital room.
Kind of like a Tamagotchi, but with dialogue.
Yeah, exactly. But the mechanics of the software were highly restrictive. The program forced the user to actively put the application into sleep states periodically.
Wait, forced sleep?
Yes, you had to suspend the program to reset her conversation trees and unlock new dialogue.
It artificially enforced a rigid rhythm on the relationship.
Yeah.
You couldn't just binge the interaction. You had to actually submit to the software's biological clock.
It established a theme of an artificial parasocial loop. You care for this digital entity, but you are constantly reminded of the programmable, unyielding boundaries separating you from her.
So that sets the emotional root of the name. What is the second lineage?
The second is purely technical architecture. There is a real repository on GitHub created by a developer named Mohammed Kali.
Okay.
It's a minimalist, open-source version control system, basically a highly simplified alternative to something like Git. And when you compile this developer system, the resulting executable file it generates is literally named aya.exe.
How does a random open-source version control system influence an industrial glitch pop artist? It seems so unconnected.
It's all about the syntax. This specific version control system requires incredibly strict, uncompromising dot notation syntax to function at all.
Like decimals.
Yeah. If you want to log a version of a file, you have to format it exactly, like 2.0.0.1. If you deviate even slightly, the system completely fails.
Oh, wow.
This rigid, systematic naming structure perfectly mirrors how the artist aya.exe names her tracks and albums. Her entire discography is structured not like a traditional music catalog, but like a database desperately trying to preserve a decaying archive of memory through version-controlled software commit.
That's wild. She's treating her own emotional expression like software patches.
Exactly.
And the third lineage.
The third is rooted in digital folklore, specifically the two horror creepypasta wikis.
Oh, creepypastas.
Yeah, in these underground collaborative digital fiction spaces, aya.exe is classified as a corrupted entity. She is categorized as a joke character or a digital monster that communicates entirely in glitched, distorted text and corrupted audio files.
Ah, so it's the classic .exe internet horror trope, where a familiar digital file becomes malevolent and breaks out of its sandbox, like Sonic.exe or whatever.
Yes, exactly like that. When the artist adopts the moniker aya.exe, she is simultaneously embodying all three histories: the isolated, parasocial digital companion, the rigid, uncompromising version control system, and the corrupted, glitched monster haunting the machine.
I mean, it is the ultimate avatar for a creator who feels trapped by the administrative systems around her.
It really is.
And this identity is fully unleashed in her music. The sources point us heavily toward a recurring musical motif in her work called the Sugar Sin Suite, or Sugar Kami in Japanese, which translates to Sugar God.
The track Sugar Sin is arguably the thematic core of the entire project.
What makes it so special?
What makes it unique is that the artist didn't just write and release the song once. She subjected the track to a systematic 5-month deconstruction across multiple releases, pushing the audio file through various states of decay.
It sounds like she is putting the song through a literal hardware stress test. Walk us through how the audio degrades.
Okay, so it starts with a standard high-fidelity version. Clean production, direct vocals, minimal compression, normal pop song stuff.
Right.
Next, she released a fake, elegant fusion edit. This version layered experimental jazz fusion instrumentation over system glitches, almost mocking the concept of classical high art by forcing it to physically stutter.
That's great.
Then there's the standard glitch pop mix, heavily distorted with high-frequency digital noise. And finally, the deconstruction ends with what she calls the delay-soaked nocturnal edit.
The delay-soaked nocturnal edit. What are the acoustics of a track like that?
It relies on massive amounts of reverb and extended decay times on all the audio tails. It essentially simulates the spatial physical isolation of standing inside a freezing, echoing server room at 3 in the morning.
So no warmth at all.
None. The human warmth is completely stripped out, leaving only the sterile bounce of sound off metal server racks.
The lyrics of this track perfectly match that sterile industrial environment, too.
They do.
They explore this bizarre triad of biological desire, theological rebellion, and computer hardware. Let me actually read a translated excerpt from the sources.
Go for it.
Sugar sticky fingers. This is my Bible absolute rule. Sell my soul for this belly. God doesn't know how to go down. Fill me up, honey. This is my last sugar heat.
There is immense density in those lyrics. I mean, the phrase "God doesn't know how to go down" is just an incredible piece of double-layered writing.
Oh, absolutely. On one level, it's theological imagery. God is immortal, infinite. God does not fall or descend.
Right.
But within the context of a server architecture.
Exactly. In the context of a server, a machine that never goes down is a machine boasting 100% operational uptime. The academic sources analyzing her work identify this as the concept of computational divinity. A high-performance server that never sleeps, never crashes, and never goes offline ceases to be just a piece of hardware. It becomes a cold, unyielding deity that demands constant sacrifice to maintain its perfect uptime.
And the sacrifice demanded is human energy.
Yes.
The human worker has to literally sell their soul just to feed the machine, to keep pace with the hyperproductivity of the digital economy. Which brings us to that closing line. This is my last sugar heat.
That line evokes the physical thermodynamic reality of thermal throttling.
Thermal throttling. Explain that for people who might not know.
When a computer processor is pushed to its absolute operational limit, basically executing too many tasks at once, it generates massive amounts of heat.
Right. The fan starts spinning super loud.
Yeah, and if the cooling system can't dissipate that heat fast enough, the hardware begins to physically degrade. So the system forcibly throttles its own performance to survive. It slows itself down.
Okay.
The artist uses thermal throttling as a direct physical metaphor for human psychological burnout. We are being overclocked by our jobs, our social platforms, our domestic obligations, until we literally overheat and crash.
Which perfectly explains the absolute flood of music she released in 2026. I mean, her discography reads like a directory of corrupted files discovered on an abandoned hard drive.
It really does.
We're talking about tracks and EPs with titles like Corporate Terrorism, Block, No Exit System Dump, and Critical Process Died, all underscored to look like files.
And the academic sources point out a really profound sociological paradox embedded in this 2026 discography.
What's the paradox?
On the surface, the music is explicitly designed and marketed as functional, utilitarian background noise. It is categorized as brain melt glitch pop and is specifically curated into playlists meant to help listeners achieve hyperproductive coding states.
Wait, really? Playlists with titles like Digital Greed Injection, which is designed for fast pacing and software stress testing.
Yeah.
Or Zero Vocal Data Dump, which is meant for deep focus while programming. It is music literally engineered to make you a better, faster, more efficient corporate worker.
Exactly. But the paradox is that while the sound serves as an acoustic stimulant for capitalist labor, what the German source material refers to as Arbeiten, the actual titles, the metadata, and the aesthetic framing of the music are furiously protesting and deconstructing that exact same administrative violence.
It is a brilliant, deeply ironic loop.
It's so good.
You are putting on headphones and using the abrasive, terrifying sounds of a system crashing, industrial beats, glitching vocals, high-frequency distortion to block out the physical world around you purely so you can focus on writing more system code for your corporate boss.
You are basically fueling the engine of the machine with the recorded sound of its own destruction.
Wow.
The artist reinforces this loop by utilizing what she calls operational modes for her track edits. Well, she releases hibernate mode edits. These apply heavy, low-pass filters, making the music sound muffled as if it's playing underwater, simulating a computer attempting a sleep state.
Oh, that's clever.
Then she has safe mode edits. Those strip away all the complex, layered melodies, leaving only a bare rhythmic skeleton. It simulates an operating system running on absolute minimum RAM to prevent a total crash.
It is an all-encompassing artistic metaphor for administrative violence, societal burnout, and the feeling of being completely crushed by rigid systems.
It's brilliant.
But here is where the narrative takes a massive, totally unexpected turn. Because in early 2026, the artistic metaphor stopped being a metaphor.
Yeah, reality caught
It
up.
became a literal real-world clash between the artist aya.exe and the massive global tech infrastructure of YouTube.
This is documented in our sources as the YouTube erasure incident. It is the moment where the aesthetic of the system crash collides with an actual catastrophic back-end failure on a global platform.
Let's lay out the timeline for this. What exactly happened on March 1st, 2026?
Okay, so on that date, the artist attempted a very standard routine administrative task. She tried to upgrade her standard YouTube channel to an official artist channel or an OAC.
Which is pretty normal for musicians.
Super normal. This is meant to be a seamless automated process that unifies a musician's disparate uploads and VEO tracks into one clean, verified catalog. But the automated system completely and repeatedly failed.
Why did it fail? Was she hit with a copyright strike or a moderation ban or something?
No, it wasn't a policy violation at all. It failed because of a single punctuation mark.
You're kidding.
I'm not. The platform's legacy backend parser, the code responsible for reading and sorting data, could not handle the dot, the period, in the name aya.exe.
A global tech platform with literally nearly unlimited engineering resources experienced a pipeline failure because of a period.
Yep.
How does that actually happen on a technical level?
To understand how the sources break this down mathematically using the concept of Shannon entropy.
Shannon entropy. Okay, explain that.
Claude Shannon established the field of information theory in 1948. He basically created a way to measure the amount of uncertainty or information content in a message.
Right.
Think of the artist's identity, aya.exe, as a complete, irreducible package of information. We'll call that vector A.
Okay, vector A is the complete identity, a string of 7 characters that must remain intact to mean what it means.
Exactly. But the platform's database does not view the world organically. It views the world through a rigid projection schema. We'll call the database vector D.
Vector D, got it.
When the parser reads the string aya.exe, it hits the dot. In standard file architecture, a dot is not a letter, it is a command.
Right, it separates the name from the extension.
So the parser schema dictates, this isn't a name, this is a directory split. Aya is the file name and .exe is the file extension.
Oh, it is trying to execute the name as a structural command instead of just reading it as a literal string of text.
Precisely. The database looks at the string and tries to map it to an executable handler that literally doesn't exist for a channel name. The result is a database mismatch. A null reference.
It just breaks.
The mathematical reality is that the entropy, the informational complexity of the artist's identity, vector A, is fundamentally greater than the structural capacity of the database's schema, vector D.
So it's an information loss.
Exactly. The formula delta I equals h of vector A minus h of vector D, which is greater than 0, represents the loss of information.
It is the equivalent of trying to force a complex 3-dimensional object into a flat 2-dimensional slot.
Great analogy.
The object doesn't fit, so the system simply chops off the pieces that protrude. The platform's rigid schema fundamentally mutilated her informational identity.
And because of that, the automation fails completely because it cannot validate who she is.
So she's just stuck.
So the artist is forced to reach out to human support to manually bypass the bug, and what follows is 4 months of absolute silence from the platform.
4 months.
Finally, in July 2026, she receives an email from a YouTube partner support agent named Kim.
And this response is where the clash between human nuance and platform bureaucracy reaches its absolute peak. What did the support agent demand? Because this part is just mind-blowing.
Instead of taking this obvious, easily reproducible back-end indexing bug and escalating it to the engineering team for a patch.
Which is how software development is supposed to work.
Exactly. Instead of doing that, the agent placed the burden of the error entirely on the human user. The agent ordered the artist to globally alter her artist name across all her digital music distributors.
Unbelievable.
She was told she must actively erase the dot from her digital identity if she wanted the channel upgrade. And just to finalize the interaction, the agent banned the artist from opening any further support tickets on the matter.
Banned her from complaining.
Ooh.
Now, as the host, I have to step in here. We have to look at this purely as an impartial clash of systems. It's an algorithmic database functioning exactly as it was flawedly programmed to, colliding with a human being.
Right. It's not inherently evil, just broken.
Exactly. Though the artist claimed this was an act of censorship and cultural amnesia. And honestly, it's a terrifying precedent. Imagine if a government agency told you to legally change your birth name because their 40-year-old tax software couldn't process a hyphen or an accent mark.
It happens more than you'd think.
How much of our actual human identity are we forced to prune and sacrifice just to fit into rigid, unyielding databases?
It highlights a very stark power dynamic. The platform's algorithmic architecture is treated as infallible. It's an immovable object, and the human being is treated as the error that needs to be corrected.
But the name aya.exe has deep roots for her.
Deep roots. The artist traces her connection to the .exe extension back roughly 35 years, to the MS-DOS era when you literally had to type .exe into a black command prompt to make a machine do anything.
Wow.
The platform is effectively demanding the erasure of a 3-decade linguistic legacy just to satisfy a poorly written validation script that cannot handle a dot.
So how did she respond? Because you don't build an entire discography titled Corporate Terrorism and then just politely agree to delete your identity to appease a support ticket.
No, definitely not. She engaged in what the academic sources categorize as semiotic guerrilla warfare.
I love that phrase, semiotic guerrilla warfare.
Since she was administratively forced to change her official distribution profile name to appease the database, she changed it to something maliciously compliant.
What did she change it to?
She renamed her global distribution profile to aya.exe, who was forced to ran by a Fermi YT support.
That is incredible. She weaponized the platform's own metadata requirements against them.
She turned the mandatory text fields of the global streaming ecosystem into a permanent protest banner.
Just brilliant.
And under this new, highly aggressive pseudonym, she released a barrage of new tracks with titles that served as unerasable monuments to the platform's architectural failure.
There were the track names.
Tracks with titles like Progress Bar Freeze Bracket, 0% Bracket, and a suspended dread edit titled Allo, Je suis derrière toi.
Which translates from French to, hello, I am behind you. That is both terrifying and hilarious.
It was a highly effective strategy. It proved that in an era of highly regulated, walled garden online spaces, the error state, or the glitch, might be the only remaining sanctuary for authentic, unrestrained creative expression.
The algorithm can control the feed, but it cannot fully process the glitch.
Exactly.
I want to zoom out from this specific YouTube incident for a second and look at the overarching philosophy driving her work. Because the creator uses this overarching title for her project, Ingaritsu Shinjo,
Right.
which translates from Japanese to causal suicide. Why are human identity and platform algorithms so fundamentally incompatible at a philosophical level?
The sources delve deeply into the epistemology of causality to explain this friction. They compare 3 distinct frameworks of logic to show why the machine and the human cannot communicate.
Okay, let's go through them. What's the first one?
First, you have algorithmic linear logic. This is the framework the YouTube parser uses.
The strict one.
Yes. It is a strict, uncompromising sequential chain. If A happens, then B happens. If an invalid character, like a dot, is introduced, the chain instantly breaks and halts. There is no nuance, no historical context, and no ability to infer intent.
Right. The computer does not care about your 35-year history with MS-DOS. It just sees an unexpected ASCII character and throws an error.
Yeah.
What is the second framework the sources explore?
The second is Judeo-Christian Western causality. This is rooted in Aristotelian thought and theological concepts of the first cause.
Like the prime mover.
Exactly. It is the philosophical idea that the physical universe is a chain of effects that requires a primary uncaused initiator, an infinite mind or spirit that exists completely outside the physical, spatial limits of nature.
How does the artist integrate Western first cause philosophy into industrial glitch pop? It feels like quite a leap.
She contrasts that concept of an infinite, uncaused, divine mind with her own creative identity. The artist feels like an infinite creative spirit, but unlike a deity, her digital identity is entirely imprisoned by the physical, unyielding parameters of servers, database schemas, and platform rules.
Oh, wow.
She is a ghost trapped inside a very rigid, unforgiving machine.
That makes total sense. And that brings us to the third framework, which requires a deep dive all on its own. Buddhist causality, specifically drawn from the Hawaiian Sutra.
This is where it gets really deep.
How does this differ from the Western linear models?
Buddhist causality, or the mechanics of the karmic mind, suggests that cause and effect are not a straight, linear chain falling like dominoes.
Really?
Instead, they are deeply interconnected, simultaneous, and almost circular. The Huayan Sutra outlines incredibly complex categories of causality, specifically detailing 6 causes and 5 effects.
Let's explore those causes. What are the mechanisms the sutra describes?
The sources highlight 3 primary ones that apply here. First, the active cause. These are the immediate forces or conditions that allow an event to occur.
Like pushing a glass off a table.
Right. Second, the coexisting cause. This is the concept that multiple factors must work together simultaneously in a shared environment to produce a result. Nothing happens in total isolation.
Gravity, the weight of the glass, the height of the table.
Exactly. And third, the similar cause, which dictates that causes must share the exact same nature or quality as their eventual effects.
The sutra contains a specific philosophical warning regarding these interconnected causes, right? And the sources apply it perfectly to the YouTube bug. What is the warning?
The Huayan Sutra warns that if the causal ground is not genuine, the resulting effect will be distorted.
If the causal ground is not genuine, the resulting effect will be distorted. Let's apply that ancient philosophical concept to the modern database parser.
Think about the core logic of the YouTube parsing error. The database's logic for parsing human names is fundamentally flawed. It cannot handle a standard punctuation mark without assuming it's a file directory command.
Right.
In Buddhist philosophical terms, the system's causal ground is ungenuine or flawed.
Because it's starting from a false premise.
Yes. Because the foundational logic of the system is broken, the resulting administrative action, Agent Kim ordering the artist to permanently erase a piece of her identity, is wildly, almost comically distorted.
The punishment doesn't fit the crime because the system defining the crime is completely broken.
Exactly.
The artist is caught in a bureaucratic loop where the platform demands the elimination of the cause, her historical name, aya.exe, just to achieve the effect of getting the channel validated.
It is quite literally a form of causal suicide. She has to kill her own history to survive the algorithm.
Which brings us back to the spatial concept we touched on at the very beginning, read space versus cyberspace.
Oh, this is my favorite part.
The struggle she is engaged in isn't just philosophical, it's being fought across 2 parallel realities. The sources draw a direct line between her struggle and a 2007 video game mod for the source engine called Dystopia.
Yeah.
Let's unpack the mechanics of that game because the parallels are just striking.
Dystopia is a multiplayer cyberpunk game built on asymmetrical warfare. 2 factions are constantly fighting. The punks, who are underground cyber mercenaries, and the core, who represent heavily armed corporate security.
Classic cyberpunk setup.
But what made the game revolutionary was that gameplay forced players to coordinate objectives across 2 parallel worlds simultaneously.
You had the physical world and the digital network happening at the exact same time in the same match.
Right. You have Meat Space, the physical 3D world where players use guns, explosives, and physical movement to secure rooms. And layered directly on top of that is cyberspace, a virtual network of glowing fiber optic nodes, firewalls, and hacking puzzles.
How did you interact with cyberspace?
Players known as deckers had to literally find a physical jack-in point on the wall in Meat Space, plug cables into their heads, and project their avatars into the network to hack the doors so their physical team could advance.
And if we look at the creator, XE, through the lens of that gameplay loop,
Yeah.
she is living it.
Literally living it.
In Meat Space, the physical world, she is trapped at her parents' house, hauling humid cotton futons up and down narrow stairs, scrubbing bathtubs at midnight, engaging in the exhausting manual labor of the Aubon holiday.
Sweating in the summer heat.
But simultaneously, from that exact same physical location, she is projecting herself into cyberspace.
She is a real-life decker.
Yes.
While her physical body is doing dishes, her digital avatar is launching a guerrilla metadata war against a global corporate algorithm, using malicious renaming tactics and glitched audio files to breach the platform's architecture.
She is a punk fighting the core across 2 realities at once. It is the exact cyberpunk reality the game predicted in 2007, just executed with fewer laser rifles and more automated passive-aggressive support emails.
It's incredible.
And this friction between human reality and digital dystopia seems to haunt the very name Aya across the internet.
It does. The sources point out that the name acts almost like a linguistic magnet for dystopian concepts.
For example.
Well, there is an indie desktop buddy game titled Study Time, Aya. On the surface, it looks like a cute, harmless productivity app where an anime girl sits on your screen and helps you study.
Sounds innocent enough.
But the mechanics under the hood are completely toxic. It entirely parodies the tyranny of modern self-optimization.
How so?
The digital buddy demands constant scheduled attention. If you close the program too quickly without following protocol, or if you fail to interact with her fast enough while you are trying to work, the digital buddy becomes furious and autonomously crashes the game, completely destroying your progress.
Wow, so it gamifies the emotional exploitation of the modern workplace. You have to constantly appease the system or it destroys your work.
Exactly, it's all connected.
The Loto 7 numbers generated from the physical trauma of cleaning a bathtub. The Windows XP architectural folders desperately isolating files to prevent total system collapse. The artist fighting a global metadata war for the right to keep a period in her name. It is all the exact same struggle.
It is the struggle of the complex, messy, associative human attempting to survive inside a machine architecture that only understands straight, unyielding lines.
We have covered an incredible amount of ground today. I mean, we started with the deeply localized human frustration of carrying futons up a staircase during a humid Japanese summer.
Then we travel through the historical architectural warfare of DLL files and memory allocation in the 1990s.
We mapped the mathematical reality of Shannon entropy and information loss.
And we ended up witnessing a global metadata guerrilla war against one of the largest tech platforms on Earth, all over a single punctuation mark.
It is a profound testament to how deeply intertwined our physical and digital lives have become. The administrative violence of a bad database parse can cause as much psychological distress and require as much tactical defense as a physical burden.
That's the reality we live in now.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a lingering question to ponder, a thought that circles back to where we started. Our modern assumption that systems are precise, clean, and capable of categorizing our lives without error.
We increasingly rely on these automated schemas to index our reality and validate our existence.
We really do. But as our world becomes increasingly managed by these automating systems, by rigid AI indexing and unforgiving database architectures, what happens to the human nuances?
The messy parts.
Right. What happens to the dots, the glitches, the historical inconsistencies that make up our actual lived histories? If we are forced to continually prune and alter our own identities just to fit cleanly into the databases of tomorrow, are we inadvertently engineering our own cultural Alzheimer's?
Are we just quietly, politely deleting the messy truths of who we used to be just so the machine doesn't throw an error code?
If the causal ground isn't genuine, the resulting effect will be distorted. What kind of distorted future are we validating?
It's a scary thought.
Something to mull over the next time a website tells you your name contains invalid characters. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.